Unexpected encounter. The derelict space station loomed before the UES horizon, a ghostly silhouette against the nebula's swirling colors. Captain Alina Reyes studied the holographic display, her brow furrowed in concentration. "Life signs?" she asked, glancing at her science officer. Lieutenant Zara Chen shook her head. "Nothing definitive, Captain. But there's an odd energy signature emanating from the lower decks. It's unlike anything in our database." Reyes nodded, a familiar thrill of discovery coursing through her veins. "Prep a shuttle. I want a small team to investigate." As the shuttle approached the alien structure, Engineer Marcus Donovan whistled softly. "Would you look at that architecture? Definitely not built by human hands." The station's sleek, organic curves contrasted sharply with the utilitarian designs favored by Earth's space programs. Iridescent panels gleamed dully in the starlight, their surfaces marred by impact craters and streaks of scorched metal. "Whatever happened here?" Security Chief Amari Okoro observed. "It wasn't pretty." The team donned their exosuits and entered through a gaping hole in the station's hull. Emergency lights flickered weakly, casting eerie shadows as they made their way deeper into the structure. The air was thin but breathable, hinting at a recent catastrophic failure of life support systems. "Fan out," Reyes ordered, "but stay in communication range. We don't know what we're dealing with here." As they explored, signs of a hasty evacuation became apparent. Scattered personal belongings littered the corridors, and several escape pod bays stood empty. Whatever had driven the station's inhabitants to flee, it had happened swiftly and without warning. Zara's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, I'm picking up that energy signature again. It's coming from a chamber about 50 meters ahead." The team converged on the location, weapons at the ready. The door to the chamber was sealed, its control panel dark and unresponsive. "I got this," Marcus said, pulling out a universal bypass tool. After a tense minute of work, the door slid open with a hiss of escaping air. The sight that greeted them left the humans momentarily stunned. The chamber appeared to be a medical bay, its walls lined with stasis pods. All but one stood empty, their occupants long gone. In the center pod, barely visible through a layer of frost on the transparent cover, lay a small alien figure. "Is it alive?" Amari asked, her voice hushed. Zara approached cautiously, scanner in hand. "Affirmative. Life signs are weak, but present. It appears to be in some form of suspended animation." Captain Reyes stepped forward, studying the alien's delicate features. Its skin was a pale lavender, with intricate patterns swirling across its forehead and down its neck. Large, almond-shaped eyes remained closed, and a series of gill-like structures fluttered gently along its jawline. Why would they leave one of their own behind? Marcus wondered aloud. Perhaps they didn't have a choice, Reyes mused. She tapped her communicator. "Horizon, this is the away team. We've got a situation here. One survivor, alien, in stasis, requesting immediate medical assistance and quarantine protocols." As the team waited for backup to arrive, Reyes couldn't shake the feeling that they had stumbled upon something far more significant than a simple rescue mission. The abandoned alien, so vulnerable and alone, stirred something deep within her. Whatever forces had conspired to leave this being behind, she was determined to see it safely to whatever home it might have. Hours later, aboard the Horizon, the alien lay in a specially prepared medical bay. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the ship's chief medical officer, hovered over the stasis pod, her face a mask of concentration. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Its physiology is unlike anything I've ever encountered. The closest analog I can think of is a sort of amphibious humanoid, but even that's a gross oversimplification." Captain Reyes stood at the foot of the pod, arms crossed. "Can you wake it safely?" Dr. Tanaka hesitated. "I believe so, but there are risks. We don't know how long it's been in stasis, or what kind of psychological trauma it might have endured." Reyes nodded grimly. "Understood. But we need answers, and it may be our only source of information about what happened on that station. Proceed with caution, Doctor." As the medical team worked to bring the alien out of stasis, the rest of the crew buzzed with excitement and apprehension. First contact situations were delicate under the best of circumstances. This one, fraught with mystery and potential danger, had everyone on edge. Slowly, the frost on the pod's surface began to dissipate. The alien's chest rose and fell with more vigor, its breathing becoming deeper and more regular. Then, with a suddenness that startled everyone in the room, its eyes snapped open. Huge, luminous orbs of deep indigo regarded the assembled humans with a mixture of fear and confusion. The alien's mouth opened in a silent cry, revealing rows of small, pointed teeth. "Easy now," Dr. Tanaka soothed, her voice low and calming. "You're safe. We're here to help you." The alien's gaze darted from face to face, its body trembling visibly. It made a series of clicks and whistles, clearly trying to communicate. "Zara," Rice called. "Get the universal translator in here now." As they waited for the device to arrive, Dr. Tanaka continued her gentle reassurances. The alien seemed to respond to her tone, if not her words, and gradually its trembling subsided. When the translator was finally calibrated, the alien's whistles and clicks resolved into recognizable speech. Where am I? Who are you? What happened to my people?" The desperation in its voice was unmistakable, transcending the barriers of species and language. Captain Reyes stepped forward, her expression compassionate but firm. "I'm Captain Alina Reyes of the Earth ship Horizon. We found you aboard an abandoned space station. You were the only survivor. Can you tell us your name? And what happened there?" The alien's large eyes brimmed with what the humans could only assume were tears. "I am Lyra," she said softly, "of the Cerulean Accord. And I fear I may be the last of my kind." As Lyra's words hummed heavy in the air, Captain Reyes realized that their mission had just become far more complex than a simple rescue operation. They were now custodians of perhaps the sole survivor of an entire civilization, and potentially the key to unlocking a mystery that spanned the stars. The weight of this responsibility settled on Alina's shoulders, but with it came a sense of purpose. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she and her crew would face them with the determination and compassion that defined the best of humanity. As the first part of their journey came to a close, a new chapter in human-alien relations was just beginning to unfold. Perilous journey. The UES Horizon cut through the inky void of space, its powerful engines humming with barely contained energy. In the ship's conference room, Captain Alina Reyes stood before her senior staff, her face grave as she addressed the assembled officers. "Ladies and gentlemen, our mission parameters have changed significantly," she began. "Our guest, Lyra, has provided us with troubling information about the fate of her people and the forces that may be pursuing her." Lieutenant Zara Chen, the science officer, pulled up a holographic display of the sector. According to Lyra, her people, the Ceruleans, were attacked by a previously unknown species called the Vorax. These Vorax are apparently driven by an insatiable hunger for resources and territory. Security Chief Amari Okoro leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "And they might be coming for us next." Reyes nodded grimly. "That's a distinct possibility. Lyra believes she may possess information crucial to stopping the Vorax expansion. Our priority now is to get her safely to Earth Space Central Command, where she can share what she knows with our top scientists and strategists." Engineer Marcus Donovan scratched his beard thoughtfully. "What about that energy signature we detected on the station? Could it be related to this Vorax technology?" "It's possible," Zara replied. "Lyra mentioned something about a prototype defense system her people were developing. If the Vorax get their hands on it, then we're all in deep trouble." Rice finished. "All right, people. We're looking at a journey of at least 2 weeks to reach Earth space, possibly longer if we need to take evasive action. I want all systems at peak efficiency. Marcus, see what you can do about boosting our engine output without compromising stability." As the meeting adjourned, Dr. Yuki Tanaka approached the captain. "Elena, I'm concerned about Lyra's physical and mental state. The trauma she's experienced. It's going to take time for her to process it all." Reyes placed a comforting hand on the doctor's shoulder. "Do what you can for her, Yuki. Her well-being is crucial, not just for the information she carries, but because it's the right thing to do. We'll show her that not all species in this galaxy are as cruel as the Vorax." Over the next few days, the Horizon pushed deeper into uncharted space, its crew on high alert for any sign of pursuit. Lyra, under Dr. Tanaka's care, slowly began to open up about her experiences and her people's culture. In the ship's hydroponics bay, surrounded by the familiar comfort of growing things, Lyra sat with Zara and Marcus, her large eyes wide with wonder as she examined a delicate orchid. "Your world must be very beautiful," she said softly, "to produce such exquisite life forms." Zara smiled. "Earth has its share of beauty, but also great challenges. We've had to work hard to preserve our natural wonders." Marcus nodded in agreement. "That's part of why we're out here, exploring. To find new ways to protect our home, and maybe make some friends along the way." Lyra's expression clouded. "The Ceruleans once thought as you did. We sought to build alliances, to share knowledge. But the Vorax," she shuddered visibly, "they see other species only as resources to be consumed or obstacles to be eliminated." Before either human could respond, the ship's alert system blared to life. Captain Rice's voice echoed through the corridors. "All hands to battle stations. Unknown vessels approaching at high speed." As the crew scrambled to their posts, Rice stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. 3 ships, their designs unlike anything in Earth's database, bore down on the horizon with alarming speed. "Hail them," Rice ordered, her voice steady despite the tension coiling in her gut. Moments later, a harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge. "Attention, unknown vessel. You are harboring a fugitive of the Vorax Imperium. Surrender the Cerulean immediately, or be destroyed." Reyes's jaw tightened. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth ship Horizon. We are on a peaceful mission of exploration, and have committed no hostile acts against your people. The individual under our protection has requested asylum. We will not surrender her." The response was immediate and chilling. "Then you have chosen extinction." The Vorax ships opened fire, their energy weapons lashing out across the void. The Horizon rocked under the assault, its shields flaring brilliantly as they absorbed the brunt of the attack. "Evasive maneuvers," Rice shouted. "Marcus, I need everything you've got from those engines." Ameri returned fire, but aimed to disable, not destroy. "We're not starting an interstellar war today if we can help it." The Horizon banked hard, its point defense lasers lighting up the darkness as they intercepted incoming missiles. Ameri's precision shooting managed to knock out the weapons array on one of the Vorax ships, sending it spinning away from the fight. But the other 2 pressed their attack relentlessly, their superior speed allowing them to flank the Earth vessel. A lucky shot penetrated the Horizon's weakening shields, sending a shudder through the entire ship. "Hull breach on Deck C." An ensign called out. "Emergency force fields are holding, but barely." In the medical bay, Dr. Tanaka worked furiously to stabilize injured crew members as Lyra looked on, her face a mask of anguish. "This is my fault," she whispered. "I've brought destruction to your people, just as the Vorax brought it to mine." Yuki paused in her work, fixing Lyra with a stern gaze. "No, the Vorax made this choice, not you. And we made the choice to help you because it was right. That's what humans do." Back on the bridge, Rice racked her brain for a solution. They were outgunned and likely couldn't sustain this fight much longer. That's when inspiration struck. "Zara, that energy signature from the station. Could we replicate it somehow?" The science officer's eyes widened with understanding. "Possibly, Captain. If we reconfigure our sensor array to emit a similar frequency." "Do it," Rice ordered. "And be ready to drop out of warp on my mark." As Zara worked feverishly at her console, the Horizon continued its desperate evasion tactics. Just when it seemed their luck had run out, Zara called out, "Ready, Captain." "Now," Rais commanded. The Horizon dropped out of warp, the sudden deceleration catching the Vorax ships off guard. In that moment of confusion, Zora activated the modified sensor array. A pulse of energy radiated outward, washing over the alien vessels. The effect was immediate and startling. The Vorax ship's systems went haywire, their weapons powering down and their engines sputtering. "It worked," Marcus exclaimed. "Whatever that prototype defense system was supposed to do, it's playing havoc with their tech." Rais allowed herself a small smile of triumph. "Well done, everyone. Now let's not overstay our welcome. Plot a course out of here, maximum warp." As the Horizon leaped back into faster-than-light travel, leaving the disabled Vorax ships behind, a collective sigh of relief went through the crew. They had survived their first encounter with this new threat, but all knew it was likely only the beginning. In the aftermath of the battle, as repair crews worked to patch the damage and the injured recovered under Dr. Tanaka's care, Captain Rais made her way to the medical bay. She found Lyra sitting quietly beside a wounded crewman's bed, her slender hand resting comfortingly on his arm. "How are you holding up?" Rais asked softly. Lyra turned to face her, those large indigo eyes shimmering with a mixture of gratitude and sorrow. I am overwhelmed, Captain. Your people fought so bravely, risked so much, for one they barely know." "Why?" Rais settled into a chair beside her. "Because it's who we are, Lyra. Humanity has a long and sometimes troubled history. We've made terrible mistakes, fought senseless wars, but we've also strived to be better, to reach out to those in need, to stand up against injustice wherever we find it." She paused, choosing her next words carefully. "What the Vorax are doing, it goes against everything we believe in. We won't stand idly by while they destroy entire civilizations. Your people may be gone, Lyra, but their legacy lives on in you. And we'll do everything in our power to ensure that legacy isn't lost." Lyra was quiet for a long moment, absorbing the captain's words. When she spoke again, her voice was filled with a new resolve. "Then I will do everything in my power to help you, Captain. The knowledge I carry, it may be the key to stopping the Vorax. I see now that I was meant to survive, to find you and your people. Together, perhaps we can forge a future where no other species need suffer as mine did." As Rais looked into Lyra's eyes, she saw a spark of hope rekindling. It was a small thing, fragile and easily extinguished, but it was a start, and in that moment, she knew that whatever challenges lay ahead on their journey, this unlikely alliance between human and cerulean might just be the galaxy's best hope for peace. The Horizon continued its race towards Earth, carrying its precious cargo of knowledge and hope. The Vorax were still out there, no doubt regrouping and planning their next move. But for now, in this small corner of the vast cosmos, humanity had taken its first steps onto a larger stage, one where the fate of entire civilizations hung in the balance. As Captain Rais left the medical bay, her resolve strengthened by Lyra's words, she knew that the real journey and the real challenges were only just beginning. Cultural clash. As the UEA's Horizon continued its journey towards Earth, the initial excitement of first contact began to give way to the complex realities of interspecies communication and cooperation. Despite the Universal Translator's best efforts, misunderstandings between Lyra and the human crew became increasingly frequent. Captain Alina Rais stood in her ready room, gazing out at the streaking stars. The door chimed, interrupting her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stepped inside, her usually calm demeanor marred by a slight frown. "Captain, we need to talk about Lyra." Rais turned to face her chief medical officer. "What's the problem, Yuki?" "Physically, she's adapting well to our environment," Tanaka began. "But culturally and psychologically, we're facing some significant hurdles." The captain nodded, unsurprised. "Give me specifics." "For one, Lyra's sleep cycle is completely out of sync with ours. She's nocturnal by nature, which is causing some friction with the crew. And her dietary needs are challenging. Our replicators are struggling to produce anything she finds palatable. Ray's sighed. Those we can work around. What else? Tanaka's frown deepened. It's her manner of communication that's really causing issues. The ceruleans apparently rely heavily on empathic abilities. Lyra's having trouble understanding why we can't simply feel what she means, and some of the crew find her attempts at empathic connection invasive. I see, Rise mused. Any recommendations? I think we need to establish some clear boundaries, Tanaka replied. But we also need to find ways to make Lyra feel more at home. This cultural divide goes both ways, Captain. We're as alien to her as she is to us. Rise nodded decisively. Set up a meeting with Lyra and our senior staff. It's time we address these issues head-on. Hours later, the conference room hummed with tension. Lyra sat at the table, her large eyes darting nervously from face to face. The senior staff arranged themselves around her, their expressions a mix of curiosity and wariness. Captain Rice cleared her throat. Lyra, we've asked you here because we need to discuss some of the challenges we've been facing in our day-to-day interactions. We want to make your stay with us as comfortable as possible, but we also need to establish some guidelines. Do you understand? Lyra's gill-like structures fluttered in what the humans had come to recognize as a sign of distress. I believe so, Captain. But I confess, I find your people's way of communication frustratingly limited. Security Chief Amari Okoro bristled visibly at this, but Reyes held up a hand to forestall any outburst. Can you elaborate on that, Lyra? The captain asked gently. The cerulean's indigo eyes seemed to shimmer with unshed tears. Among my people, we share thoughts and emotions freely. The idea of keeping one's inner self hidden is alien to us. I feel so alone here, cut off from the collective empathy of my kind. Your words are like pebbles skipping across the surface of a deep lake, never truly touching the depths beneath. Engineer Marcus Donovan leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. But surely your people must have had some concept of privacy, of individual thoughts and feelings. Lyra tilted her head, considering. We value individuality, yes, but we see it as something to be shared, not hidden. Our uniqueness is what we contribute to the greater whole. Lieutenant Zara Chen, ever the scientist, couldn't contain her curiosity. Fascinating. Lyra, would you be willing to demonstrate your empathic abilities? Perhaps if we understand them better, we can find a middle ground. Lyra's eyes brightened. Of course. I would be honored. Before anyone could object, the cerulean closed her eyes in concentration. The humans in the room suddenly felt a wave of emotion wash over them. A complex mixture of gratitude, fear, hope, and an overwhelming sense of loss. Amari jumped to her feet, her hand instinctively moving to where her sidearm would normally be. What the hell was that? She demanded. Lyra's eyes snapped open, confusion and hurt evident in her expression. I was merely trying to share my feelings with you, to help you understand. Dr. Tanaka, who had remained silent until now, spoke up. Lyra, for humans, experiencing someone else's emotions so directly can be overwhelming, even frightening. We're not accustomed to such intimate mental contact. I see, Lyra said softly, her shoulders slumping. I have offended you. That was not my intent. Captain Rice took a deep breath, centering herself. No offense taken, Lyra. But this does highlight the need for clearer boundaries. We need to find a way to communicate effectively without making anyone uncomfortable. Over the next few hours, the group worked to establish guidelines for interaction. Lyra agreed to refrain from using her empathic abilities without explicit permission, while the humans promised to be more patient in explaining concepts that might be foreign to her. As the meeting drew to a close, Marcus raised another pressing issue. Captain, what about the information Lyra carries about the Vorax? We need to find a way to access and understand it if we're going to have any hope of countering their threat. Reyes nodded gravely. Agreed. Lyra, is there a way you can share this knowledge with us that doesn't involve direct empathic transfer? Lyra considered for a moment, her brow furrowing in concentration. Perhaps, in my culture, we have a tradition of memory singing. It's a way of encoding complex information into musical patterns. If I could access your ship's audio systems, I might be able to translate the data into a form your computers can analyze. Zara's eyes lit up with excitement. That could work. We could run the audio through our linguistic and cryptographic algorithms. It might take some time to decode, but it's a start. Make it happen, Reyes ordered. Lyra, work with Zara and Marcus to set up whatever you need for this memory singing. The sooner we can understand what we're up against, the better. As the meeting adjourned, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. There was still tension, still uncertainty, but also a renewed sense of purpose and collaboration. Over the next few days, the crew of the Horizon worked to implement the new guidelines for interacting with Lyra. It wasn't always smooth sailing. Cultural misunderstandings still occurred, and some crew members remained wary of the alien in their midst. In the ship's mess hall, Ameri sat alone, picking at her food and watching Lyra interact with a group of curious junior officers across the room. Dr. Tanaka approached, settling into the seat across from her. "Credit for your thoughts?" the doctor asked. Ameri sighed. "I don't know, Doc. I want to trust her, I do. But every instinct I have is screaming that she's a security risk. We know next to nothing about her people, about this conflict with the Vorax. What if we're being played?" Tanaka nodded sympathetically. "Your caution is understandable, Amari. But consider this. If Lyra meant us harm, she's had ample opportunity. That empathic ability of hers, it could be a formidable weapon if she chose to use it that way." "Maybe," Ameri conceded. "But that's what worries me. We're so out of our depth here." "True," Tanaka agreed. "But isn't that always the case when we encounter something new? Our history is full of moments like this, moments where we had to choose between fear and understanding. More often than not, choosing understanding has led us to our greatest achievements." Before Ameri could respond, an alert sounded throughout the ship. Captain Rice's voice came over the comm system. "All senior staff to the bridge immediately. We've got a situation." Minutes later, the senior staff assembled on the bridge, Lyra joining them at the captain's invitation. On the main view screen, a swirling mass of energy pulsed and writhed. "What are we looking at?" Reyes demanded. Zara consulted her readings. "It appears to be some kind of spatial anomaly, Captain. Unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's directly in our path, and it's growing." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes wide with recognition. "By the celestial currents," she breathed. "It's a nexus point." All eyes turned to the cerulean. "Care to elaborate?" Reyes asked. "In our travels, my people discovered these rare phenomena," Lyra explained. "They're like crossroads in the fabric of space-time. Nexus points can connect distant parts of the galaxy, even different time periods. But they're incredibly dangerous and unpredictable." Marcus whistled softly. "A naturally occurring wormhole network. The scientific implications are staggering. As are the tactical ones," Ameri added grimly. "If the Vorax get control of these nexus points, they could strike anywhere, anytime." Rice finished. "Lyra, do you know how to navigate this thing safely?" The cerulean's gill structures fluttered anxiously. "Theoretically, yes. But Captain, using a nexus point is incredibly risky. We could end up anywhere, or anywhen." Reyes's expression hardened with resolve. "And if we don't use it, we risk the Vorax finding it first. Sometimes, the greatest risk is not taking one." She turned to her crew. "Prepare for nexus point entry. Lyra, I need everything you know about this phenomenon now." As the Horizon approached the swirling vortex of the nexus point, the tension on the bridge was palpable. Human and cerulean worked side by side, their earlier misunderstandings set aside in the face of this new challenge. Lyra's voice rang out, clear and melodious, as she began to sing the complex navigational data needed to traverse the Nexus safely. The ship's computers processed the information in real time, Zara and Marcus working furiously to integrate it into their systems. Nexus point perimeter in 10 seconds, Amari called out. Captain Reyes gripped the arms of her chair. All hands, brace for transit. Helm, take us in. The horizon plunged into the swirling maelstrom of energy, the very fabric of reality seeming to twist and warp around them. For a moment that stretched into eternity, the ship and its crew existed everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, with a final surge of power, they burst free on the other side. As the viewscreen cleared, a collective gasp went up from the bridge crew. Before them lay not the star-studded blackness of familiar space, but a vast, shimmering nebula unlike anything they had ever seen. Lyra's voice was filled with awe and disbelief. Impossible. This is the cerulean cradle, the birthplace of my species, but it was destroyed by the Vorax centuries ago. Captain Rice turned to her alien guest, her expression a mixture of wonder and determination. Well, Lyra, it seems the universe has given us a second chance. The question is, what do we do with it? As the horizon hung suspended in this impossible place, human and cerulean alike realized that their journey had taken a turn none of them could have predicted. The cultural clashes that had seemed so significant mere hours ago now paled in comparison to the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. In this moment of shared amazement, the first true bonds of understanding began to form between species. For in the face of the universe's grandeur and mystery, they were no longer simply human or cerulean. They were explorers, united in their quest for knowledge and their determination to forge a better future. The real test of their newfound unity, however, was yet to come. United front. The UES horizon hung in space, dwarfed by the swirling majesty of the Cerulean Cradle Nebula. On the bridge, Captain Alina Reyes stood transfixed by the view, her mind racing with the implications of their impossible journey. Lyra, she said, turning to the Cerulean, you're certain this is your people's home system? Lyra nodded, her large eyes shimmering with emotion. Without doubt, Captain. But as I said, this place was destroyed long ago. We must have traveled through time as well as space. Lieutenant Zara Chen spoke up from her station. Captain, I've managed to correlate our position with our star charts. If Lyra is correct about when her homeworld was destroyed, we've gone back approximately 300 years. A heavy silence fell over the bridge as the crew grappled with this revelation. Right, Ray said, her voice cutting through the tension. Let's focus on what we know and what we need to do. Lyra, is there any chance your people are still alive in this time period? The Cerulean's gill structures fluttered in what the humans had come to recognize as a sign of deep thought. It's possible. If we've arrived before the Vorax invasion, my people would still be here, unaware of the danger approaching. Security Chief Amari Okoro frowned. Captain, I hate to be the voice of pessimism, but we need to consider the temporal prime directive. If we interfere with the past, we could irreparably damage the timeline. Engineer Marcus Donovan shook his head. But if we don't interfere, we're condemning an entire species to extinction. Surely that's worth the risk. Before Reyes could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Multiple contacts detected. Amari called out. Energy signatures matched the Vorax ships we encountered before. Reyes's expression hardened. It seems the decision has been made for us. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. As the crew scrambled to their posts, Lyra approached the captain, her voice urgent. Alina, please, let me contact my people. If we can warn them, evacuate them. Do it, Reyes nodded. Zara, help Lyra establish communication with the Cerulean homeworld. Marcus, I need everything you can give me from the engines. Amari, weapons hot. We're not going down without a fight. The bridge erupted into a flurry of activity as the horizon prepared for battle. On the main view screen, a fleet of Vorax ships emerged from the nebulous swirling gases, their sleek, predatory forms a stark contrast to the beauty surrounding them. Incoming transmission, Zara reported. On screen, Rise ordered. The image of a Vorax commander filled the view screen. Its insectoid features were twisted in what might have been a sneer. Impossible, it chittered. The human vessel from the future. Your presence here is a violation of natural law. Surrender now, and we may yet spare you. Reyes stood tall, her voice steady. This is Captain Alina Reyes of the UES Horizon. We will not surrender, and we will not allow you to destroy the cerulean people. Stand down, or face the consequences. The Vorax commander's multifaceted eyes gleamed with malice. You've made your choice, human. Prepare to be eradicated. As the transmission cut off, the Vorax fleet opened fire. The horizon rocked under the assault, its shields flaring brilliantly. Evasive maneuvers, Raid shouted. Amari, target their lead ship. Let's show them what humanity is capable of. The space around the cerulean cradle erupted into chaos as the lone Earth ship engaged the Vorax fleet. Despite being outnumbered, the Horizon's advanced technology and the skill of its crew allowed it to hold its own. Lyra worked frantically at a communications console, her melodious voice rising and falling as she attempted to contact her people. Suddenly, her eyes widened. I've made contact. The Cerulean High Council is responding. Patch them through, Rise ordered, dodging a piece of debris as another blast rocked the ship. A holographic image flickered to life on the bridge. A group of Ceruleans, their features similar to Lyra's, but marked with the signs of age and wisdom. Their eyes widened in shock as they took in the scene before them. I am Neril, High Speaker of the Cerulean Accord, one of them said. What is the meaning of this? Who are you, and why do you battle in our space? Lyra stepped forward, her voice choked with emotion. Honored Speaker, I am Lyra, of the House of Cinera. I come from your future, a future where our people have been all but eradicated by the beings you see attacking this ship. You must evacuate our world immediately. The High Speaker's expression was one of disbelief and confusion. This is impossible. We have no record of any Lyra in the House of Cinera, and these attackers are unknown to us. There's no time to explain everything, Rise interjected, wincing as another blast shook the ship. Your entire civilization is at risk. Please, you must trust us and begin evacuations now. As the Cerulean Council argued among themselves, the battle outside intensified. The Horizon's shields were weakening under the relentless Vorax assault. Captain, Marcus called out, his voice strained. We can't take much more of this. Our weapons are barely making a dent in their defenses. Reyes's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then, inspiration struck. Lyra, the prototype defense system your people were working on, the one we used to disable the Vorax ships before, is it developed yet in this time? Lyra's eyes widened with understanding. Yes, it would be in its early stages, but the fundamental principles would be the same. Neril, Rise addressed the Cerulean leader. We need access to your prototype defense system. It may be our only hope of defeating the Vorax. The High Speaker hesitated, clearly torn between suspicion and the urgent reality of the situation unfolding before him. Finally, he nodded. Very well. We will transmit the data to you. But know this, if you betray our trust, the consequences will be severe. As the Cerulean data streamed into the Horizon's computers, Zara and Marcus worked feverishly to integrate it with their systems. Lyra moved between them, her knowledge of Cerulean technology proving invaluable. We've got it, Marcus shouted triumphantly. Reconfiguring our deflector dish now. Zara, I'll need you to modulate the frequency to match the Vorax ship's energy signatures. The Horizon banked hard, narrowly avoiding a barrage of enemy fire. Amari's precise shooting managed to disable two of the smaller Vorax vessels, but more were pouring in from the nebula. Whatever you're going to do it fast. Amari called out, her fingers flying over the tactical controls. Ready, Zara announced. Reyes didn't hesitate. Do it. A pulse of energy erupted from the horizon's deflector dish, expanding outward in a shimmering wave. As it washed over the Vorax fleet, their ships began to falter. Weapons went offline. Engines sputtered and died. It's working, Lyra exclaimed, her voice filled with a mixture of relief and vindication. But their victory was short-lived. The largest Vorax ship, evidently shielded against the effects of the pulse, continued its advance. Their flagship is still operational, Amari reported grimly, and it's charging some kind of primary weapon. Impact in 30 seconds. Reyes turned to the holographic image of the Cerulean Council. Neril, we need your help. If you have any defensive capabilities, now is the time to use them. The High Speaker nodded solemnly. We will stand with you, strangers from the future, for the sake of our people. As the Vorax flagship prepared to fire, a fleet of sleek Cerulean vessels emerged from the nebula. They took up formation around the horizon, their advanced shields linking to create a unified defensive barrier. The Vorax weapon discharge, a beam of terrifying power lancing out towards them. The combined shields of the horizon and the Cerulean fleet flared brilliantly as they absorbed the impact. For a moment, it seemed they might buckle under the assault, but they held. As the beam dissipated, Reyes saw their opportunity. All power to weapons. Cerulean fleet, concentrate your fire on their flagship's main weapon array. In a dazzling display of cooperation, human and Cerulean technology worked in perfect harmony. The horizon's phasers lanced out, guided by the pinpoint accuracy of Cerulean targeting systems. The Vorax flagship's defenses crumbled under the combined assault. With a series of spectacular explosions, the massive alien vessel began to break apart. The remaining Vorax ships, still crippled by the defense system pulse, began to retreat, disappearing back into the nebula's swirling depths. As the last enemy ship vanished from their sensors, a cheer went up from the horizon's crew. Lyra sagged against a console, overwhelmed by emotion. We did it, she whispered. We saved them. Reyes allowed herself a small smile of triumph before turning back to the Cerulean Council. High Speaker Neril, I believe we have much to discuss. The next several hours were a flurry of activity as the horizon docked with the Cerulean capital ship. Reyes, along with Lyra and her senior staff, met face-to-face with the High Council to explain their presence and the grave future they had come from. In a grand chamber adorned with swirling patterns of light that seemed to move of their own accord, Captain Reyes stood before the assembled Cerulean leadership. Lyra stood by her side, acting as both translator and living proof of their incredible tale. And so, Reyes concluded, we find ourselves here, in your past, with knowledge that could change the course of history. We've already interfered by engaging the Vorax. The question now is, where do we go from here? High Speaker Neril regarded the humans thoughtfully, his large eyes unblinking. You have given us much to consider, Captain Reyes. The future you describe is indeed grim, not just for our people, but for the galaxy as a whole. One of the other council members spoke up, her voice tinged with concern. But can we trust that changing the past won't lead to even worse outcomes? Perhaps the destruction of our people serves some greater purpose in the cosmic order. Lyra stepped forward, her voice passionate. With all due respect, honored ones, I have seen the future you speak of. I have lived it. There is no greater purpose served by the eradication of our species or any other. The Vorax are a plague upon the galaxy, consuming all in their path. If we have been given this chance to stop them, we must seize it. A murmur went through the council chamber as the Ceruleans debated among themselves. Finally, Neril raised a hand for silence. We have reached a decision, he announced. The Cerulean Accord will join forces with the humans of Earth. Together, we will work to create a future free from the threat of the Vorax. But know this, he added, his gaze sweeping over the assembled humans. This alliance must be one of equals. We will share our knowledge and technology, but we expect the same in return. Reyes nodded solemnly. Agreed. This is an opportunity not just to save your people, but to forge a partnership that could benefit both our species for generations to come. As the formal proceedings concluded, Reyes found herself standing with Lyra on a balcony overlooking the cerulean capital city. The alien metropolis was a breathtaking sight, graceful spires that seemed to be grown rather than built, interconnected by shimmering bridges of pure energy. "It's beautiful," Reyes said softly. "I can see why your people fought so hard to protect it." Lyra's gill structures fluttered in what Reyes had come to recognize as a sign of deep emotion. "I never thought I'd see it again," she whispered. "Elena, I can't thank you and your crew enough for what you've done." Reyes placed a comforting hand on Lyra's shoulder. "We're not finished yet. There's still the matter of getting back to our own time and making sure the changes we've made here stick." Lyra nodded, her expression turning serious. "The nexus point that brought us here, it's unstable. We may only have one chance to return to your time. Then we'll make it count," Reyes said firmly. "We'll take with us everything we've learned, every advantage we can get. And when we return, we'll be ready to face whatever the future holds." As they stood there, human and cerulean united in purpose, the first rays of the system's twin suns crested the horizon. The nebula above them shimmered with new colors, as if heralding the dawn of a new era. The battle was won, but the war was far from over. Yet in this moment, watching the sunrise over a world reborn, Captain Elena Reyes allowed herself to hope. For in the face of impossible odds, they had found something powerful. A union of two species, bound together by courage, compassion, and a shared vision of a better future. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. A new understanding. The UES horizon hung in high orbit above the cerulean homeworld, its hull gleaming in the light of the binary stars. On the bridge, Captain Elena Reyes stood with her senior staff and Lyra, watching as a fleet of cerulean ships took formation around them. "Are we ready?" Reyes asked, her voice tinged with both anticipation and apprehension. Lieutenant Zara Chen nodded from her station. "As ready as we'll ever be, Captain. The Ceruleans have provided us with everything they know about the nexus points. If our calculations are correct, we should be able to return to our own time." "Should be," Engineer Marcus Donovan muttered. "No pressure or anything." Security Chief Amari Okoro shot him a stern look. "A little optimism wouldn't hurt, Marcus." Before the engineer could retort, a transmission came through. The holographic form of High Speaker Neril materialized on the bridge. "Captain Reyes," the cerulean leader intoned, "on behalf of my people, I wish you a safe journey. The data crystals we've provided contain not only our most advanced scientific and technological knowledge, but also a comprehensive history of our culture. We entrust this to you, in the hope that our alliance will flourish in your time, as it has begun to in ours." Reyes bowed her head respectfully. "We're honored by your trust, High Speaker. Rest assured, we'll do everything in our power to ensure a better future for both our peoples." Neril's large eyes seemed to shimmer with emotion. "Remember, Captain, the future is not set. By your actions here, you've already changed the course of history. The Cerulean people will be prepared for the coming of the Vorax. When you return to your time, you may find a very different galaxy awaiting you." "Understood," Reyes replied. "Whatever we find, we'll face it together." As the transmission ended, Reyes turned to her crew. "All right, people, this is it. Zara, set a course for the nexus point. Marcus, I need every ounce of power you can give me to the temporal stabilizers. Amari, keep an eye out for any Vorax stragglers. Let's bring her home." The horizon broke orbit, escorted by the Cerulean fleet. As they approached the swirling vortex of the nexus point, Lyra stepped forward, her voice soft, but filled with determination. "Captain," she said, "I've made a decision. I wish to return with you to your time." Reyes turned to the cerulean, surprise evident on her face. "Are you sure, Lyra? This is your home, your people. You have a chance to live the life that was taken from you." Lyra's gill structures fluttered with emotion. "This is my home, yes, but my place is with you and your crew now. The knowledge I carry, my experiences, they could be crucial in the times to come." Besides, she added, a hint of her newfound human-like humor creeping into her voice, "someone needs to keep you humans out of trouble." A chuckle went through the bridge crew. Reyes smiled, feeling a swell of pride and affection for this brave alien who had become such an integral part of their team. "We'd be honored to have you with us, Lyra," the captain said warmly. As the horizon approached the nexus point, the swirling energies seemed to reach out, tendrils of chronoparticles enveloping the ship. The deck plates vibrated beneath their feet as reality itself began to warp around them. "Nexus point transit in 10 seconds. Zara called out. Reyes gripped the arms of her chair. "All hands, brace for temporal shift." The universe seemed to twist and fold in on itself as the horizon plunged into the heart of the nexus point. For a moment that stretched into eternity, past and future, cause and effect, all blurred into a kaleidoscope of possibility. Then, with a final surge of power, they burst free. As the view screen cleared, a collective gasp went up from the bridge crew. Before them lay not the familiar star patterns of their own time, but a vast, shimmering network of interconnected space stations and artificial structures. When are we?" Ameri asked, her voice hushed with awe. Zara's fingers flew over her console. "According to our chronometers, we've arrived at the correct temporal coordinates. This is our time, Captain." But everything's changed," Reyes finished, her eyes wide as she took in the sight before them. Suddenly, a transmission cut through their bewilderment. On the view screen appeared a face that was at once familiar and startlingly different. A cerulean, but one whose features showed subtle signs of human influence. "Unidentified vessel, this is Harmony Station Control. Please identify yourself and state your intentions." Reyes straightened her uniform, taking a deep breath. "This is Captain Elena Reyes of the UES Horizon. We've been away for a while. Request permission to dock and update our situation." There was a pause, then the cerulean's expression softened into a smile. "UES Horizon, your arrival has been long anticipated. Welcome home. Please proceed to Docking Bay 17. Representatives from the Galactic Council will meet you there." As the transmission ended, the bridge erupted into a flurry of excited conversation. Reyes held up a hand for silence. "All right, let's not get ahead of ourselves. We don't know what kind of world we've come back to. Zara, I want a full sensor sweep of the area. Ameri, discreetly bring weapons to standby, just in case. Marcus, make sure our logs and the cerulean data crystals are secure. Lyra, I think it's best if you stay close to me. Your presence might need some explaining." As the horizon maneuvered towards the massive space station, the crew worked to gather as much information as possible. The sensor readings were staggering. Technology far beyond anything they had left behind. A harmonious blend of human ingenuity and cerulean elegance. When they finally docked, Reyes led a small away team consisting of herself, Lyra, and her senior staff. As the airlock cycled open, they found themselves face to face with a delegation unlike anything they could have imagined. Humans stood side by side with ceruleans, their uniforms a seamless fusion of both cultures' aesthetics. But they weren't alone. Representatives from a dozen other alien species filled the reception area, each bearing the same insignia of unity. A distinguished-looking human woman stepped forward, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. "Captain Reyes, I'm Admiral Jung of the Galactic Defense Force. On behalf of the United Stellar Alliance, welcome back." Reyes shook the offered hand, her mind reeling. "Thank you, Admiral. We have a lot of questions." Admiral Jung smiled knowingly. "I'm sure you do. And we have quite a story to tell you. If you'll follow me, The Council is eager to meet with you. As they made their way through the station, Reyes and her crew marveled at the sights around them. Holographic displays showed star systems teeming with life, trade routes connecting far-flung worlds, and scientific achievements beyond their wildest dreams. Finally, they arrived at a grand chamber, its walls adorned with the flags and symbols of countless worlds. At the center stood a circular table, around which sat the most diverse group of beings Reyes had ever seen. A cerulean elder, his skin bearing the iridescent patterns of great age and wisdom, rose to greet them. Captain Elena Reyes, crew of the UES Horizon, and Lyra of the House of Cinera, your return marks the closing of a great circle in our shared history. Please, be seated. There is much to discuss. Over the next several hours, Reyes and her crew listened in awe as the history of the past 3 centuries unfolded before them. Their actions in the past had indeed changed everything. The Ceruleans, forewarned and prepared, had stood strong against the Vorax invasion. But more than that, they had reached out to humanity, fostering an alliance that would reshape the galaxy. Together, humans and Ceruleans had faced the Vorax threat, not through war, but through diplomacy, cultural exchange, and a sharing of knowledge that elevated both species. This union became the cornerstone of the United Stellar Alliance, a federation of worlds dedicated to peace, scientific advancement, and mutual understanding. The Vorax, confronted not by enemies but by a united front offering cooperation and a chance for growth, had gradually transformed. No longer driven solely by conquest, they had found a place within the galactic community, their fierce determination channeled into exploration and discovery. As the briefing concluded, Reyes sat back, her mind struggling to process the magnitude of what they had accomplished. "It's overwhelming," she admitted. "We set out to save one species, and instead, you laid the foundation for a new era of intergalactic cooperation," the Cerulean elder finished. "Your actions prove that even in the darkest of times, compassion and understanding can light the way forward." Lyra, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout the meeting, finally spoke up. "But what of the nexus points? Surely their existence poses a continued risk to the timeline." A holographic display sprang to life in the center of the table, showing a network of swirling energy vortices. "The nexus points have become the backbone of our civilization," explained a reptilian being that Reyes didn't recognize. "Through careful study and the combined efforts of our greatest minds, we've learned to stabilize and harness them. They now serve as a rapid transit system between distant parts of the galaxy, allowing for trade and cultural exchange on an unprecedented scale." Admiral Zhang leaned forward, her expression serious. "However, Captain, your concerns about temporal interference are valid. That's why we've established the Temporal Integrity Commission. Its purpose is to monitor and protect the timeline, ensuring that the power of the nexus points is never abused." Reyes nodded slowly, the implications sinking in. "And where do we fit into all of this? My crew, my ship, we're relics of a past that no longer exists." The chamber fell silent for a moment. Then the Cerulean elder spoke again, his voice gentle but firm. "You, Captain Reyes, and your valiant crew, are the bridge between what was and what is. Your unique perspective, your experiences, they are invaluable. We would ask that you join us, help guide us as we continue to build this future you've made possible." Reyes looked around at her crew, seeing the mix of excitement and apprehension on their faces. They had left behind everything they knew, sacrificed their very timeline, in the name of doing what was right. And now, they were being offered a chance to shape the future they had created. "I think I speak for all of us," Reyes said slowly, "when I say that we would be honored to serve in whatever capacity you deem fit." A ripple of approval went through the assembled council members. Admiral Zhang stood, her posture straight and proud. "Then let it be recorded. Captain Elena Reyes and the crew of the UES Horizon are hereby commissioned as special advisors to the United Stellar Alliance. Your first assignment will be to lead a diplomatic mission to the far reaches of our territory, sharing your unique story and fostering continued cooperation between worlds. As the meeting adjourned and the crew of the Horizon prepared to embark on their new mission, Rise found herself standing with Lyra on an observation deck, gazing out at the bustling activity of Harmony Station. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" Rise asked softly. Lyra's gill structures fluttered in what Rise now recognized as a sign of contentment. "In my wildest dreams, perhaps, but to see it, to live it, it's beyond anything I could have hoped for." Rise nodded, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "We set out to change the future, and we ended up changing ourselves in the process. Human, cerulean, Vorax. In the end, we're all just travelers in this vast universe, aren't we?" "Indeed," Lyra agreed, "and the journey, it seems, is only beginning." As they stood there, watching ships of a dozen different designs moving gracefully through space, Rise felt a profound sense of purpose settle over her. They had faced the unknown, confronted their fears and prejudices, and emerged stronger for it. Whatever challenges lay ahead in this brave new galaxy, they would face them together, not as separate species, but as a united front, bound by compassion, curiosity, and an unwavering commitment to a better future for all. The stars beckoned, and the crew of the Horizon, ambassadors of a new age, stood ready to answer the call.